After months of hiatus due to what by all measures was an explosive disruption on the show, I have with me tonight the man known as John Cullen from the YouTube channel John E Hoover. And John, it's great to have you back. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks for having me back on the show. Really appreciate it.
And I really appreciate you returning. You know, for many months, you and I were in a state of, we were out of communication, let's face it. I mean, it was sort of confusion. I think the argument that occurred back in February left many people with doubts about a lot of different things. There are so many more subscribers on Crowdsource the Truth now than there were in February of 2018, that there's going to be a lot of people who maybe don't know what that dust-up was all about. And certainly I don't want to focus on that. That is a major distraction, but it has become a point of interest that there seem to be a lot of people in the online news community, a lot of people in the, I hate this word, but the truther community who maybe aren't telling us the truth. And there's this notion that we should all just work together and we're all working for the same thing. That is a dangerous supposition because it opens the door for people that would intentionally want to lie to us to come on in and suppose that everybody is welcome to tell us any old thing at all. And I think, John, it's very important that we scrutinize anyone and everyone who comes to this or any other investigation very carefully.
Certainly. You know, what I'm thinking, Jason, is by means of introduction to some of the listeners or viewers who are watching this right now that are not familiar with my work, they may be saying, so Jason, who is John Cullen and what's he all about? You know, what's he known for?
Right.
So I guess maybe my means of introduction, I started publishing videos on a YouTube channel about a year ago after the Las Vegas attack on a channel called John Cullen. Right. YouTube terminated that channel, and I started a new channel called John E Hoover. And
well, they terminated it, John, of course, not because of the name, but because of the content that you were posting, correct?
Well, I think it was probably terminated. You know, I take responsibility for my actions, right? So I think I was probably promoting the videos in a manner that they consider, I don't know what they call it.
Sensational?
No, meaning I was publishing links to my videos in comments on other YouTube channels' pages.
Maybe
and so I think they
aggressive,
called me a spammer. Right, exactly. So I think I got tagged as a spam or something like that.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I started a new channel. And over the course of the last year, the channel has garnered over 2 million views.
Wow, congratulations.
Has over 10,000 subscribers. Yeah. And it's dedicated exclusively to the Las Vegas shooting. Right. So we don't look at anything other than this particular tragedy.
Right. Well, and thank you for doing that, John. And the thing that brought me back in communication with you, of course, was the incredible work that you've been doing. You know, after the dust-up with our friend Jake, who basically used false evidence to say that he had contacted the Saudi Arabian embassy. I mean, he had a caller ID message on his phone that said that he did, but he never presented any evidence of the content of the call. And in fact, what he alleged to have spoken to them about was frankly ridiculous, and without evidence, I don't think it can possibly be believed. He said that he had called the embassy and that they told him details of the whereabouts of the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, members of the crowdsourced community, including myself, also contacted the Saudi Arabian embassy, and they told us quite logically that standard operating procedure was to never give out any information over the phone about the whereabouts of the royal family, and that any inquiry at all would have to be made in writing to a very specific email address. And I never followed up with that because I have to assume, without very good reason, they're not going to give information about the whereabouts of the royals. It doesn't make sense. So when I challenged Jake to show us this evidence that he had, instead of doing that, he made a bunch of disparaging videos about me, trying to link me to some allegedly insane person who came to his house, who he then chased out with a bat, but then interviewed a few days later. And I don't want to make this video about accosting or insulting Jake, but I do want to ask the question, why was he so adamant about preventing us from looking at evidence related to the possible use of helicopters in the attack on Las Vegas on October 1st? Was it October 1st, 2017? I think it's a very important question.
Certainly.
And you found some evidence showing that they were used.
Well, and that's, you know, if somebody from I guess it was the Howard Stern show, they used to ask people, why are you famous? Right? So if people came up to me and said, you know, why is John Cullen so to speak famous? It's for the helicopter theory and for the Saudi Arabian assassination theory. Very early on in October of last year, I published videos basically saying that this was an aerial attack by helicopter, and showed evidence of that. In the course of the year, the hypothesis has been refined. The other thing that I'm known for is the Saudi Arabian theory. It was first introduced on Alex Jones's show with Shepard Ambellis. Shepard has played a huge role in this. And so Shepard was on Alex Jones' show. One of the guys who called in, Zach, talked about Saudi Arabia. But this was before the Night of 1,000 Swords. This, I think, was October 29th. It was November 4th or 5th that Mohammed bin Salman had all these guys arrested, and Mansour bin Mukran was killed. I was the guy that really came out with all the names of the Saudi Arabian perpetrators. I did the research into the Night of 1,000 Swords, found out, you know, who was sort of at the top of the list, and came up with a list of perpetrators that had expressed interest in changing the leadership in Saudi Arabia. Basically, these guys had been planning a coup for 2 years. And so I identified the guys who had been planning the coup. They happened to be guys who were also arrested the Night of 1,000 Swords. So that's kind of what I'm known for. And I guess that's not what Jake was investigating. Jake was investigating Paddock and Danley and child trafficking and all this other stuff. So my area of expertise and his area of expertise, there was not a lot of overlap. And I think that's one of the things that I was attracted to, you know, getting on the show with you, with him, was to combine my knowledge with his knowledge and see if we could figure this out. He didn't really want to get into that. So,
well, there's something else I want to say about that. Something else I want to say about that, John, because when I spoke to Jake on the phone, I told him, Jake, you know, I like you and your research. I like John and his research. He had some issues, and it sounds like they were related to what you were talking about earlier, posting links in the comments. He had accused you of getting into arguments with people in his comments. I said to him, look, let's get on the phone. Let's iron this all out. We could do a private three-way call to work out any disagreement before we do it. But my intention was not to have you guys argue. My intention was to put together two disparate theories and compare them to each other. I think that strong theories can withstand strong debate, and in fact should be tested by strong debate, and that's what I wanted to do. But then, although Jake agreed to do that debate and said he did not want a preliminary phone call, he immediately turned our live stream upside down, spoke to you in what sounded to me like fluent Thai, accused you of not being in Thailand, and then later retracted that and said he knew you were in Thailand based on a bird that he heard in the background. So I don't know what it is that Jake was trying to do there, but he introduced a lot of animosity, a lot of discord, and a lot of confusion into what could have really been very beneficial to anyone who wanted to know actually what did happen there in Las Vegas on October 1st. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think it's a shame. It really is. You know, obviously he's a really smart guy. I would have loved to have worked with him, but Yeah, I guess it's
I'll add
clear
this.
yeah, he didn't want to do that.
Well,
So,
I'll add this. We would welcome him back with evidence, and if he would be civil, to continue to join this debate. So let's back up a little bit and remind
sure.
everyone where this helicopter theory originated in terms of your channel. You had created a video that showed some training footage that included the capabilities and applications of a Boeing AHI helicopter, which was an assault helicopter, a lightweight assault helicopter that's utilized by the Saudi Air National Guard. And they had a training exercise going on in Las Vegas at Nellis Air Force Base the entire month of September, just prior to this shooting, and had rented out the W Hotel, if I'm not mistaken. The entire Saudi Air National Guard was staying at that hotel. Am I getting this right?
I think the Air Force was at the W. The Air National Guard, I'm not sure where they were staying, but it's a big contingency. Yeah, a big contingent. They've got a large group of people.
Saudi
And
Arabian military.
Sure, and the Operation Red Flag is a big operation. We've got a number of countries that participate in that.
What is Operation Red Flag?
It's an operation we run out of Nellis, where different countries come and participate, and it's, I guess it's battle exercises. You can read all about it. It's all online. You can read all about Red Flag, but we invite different countries to participate, and Saudi Arabia was participating in 2017, and it, as you said, it took place about 2 weeks before the event, and the head of the Saudi Arabian National Guard is Khalid bin Salman, Mohammed bin Salman's brother.
Interesting. Wow. And we know there's been a tremendous amount of fighting going on in Saudi Arabia. As you mentioned earlier in this conversation, there have been multiple attempts on the Crown Prince's life. There was a shooting at a palace in Jeddah, something like 6 or 7 days after this occurred. There have been, I think, 2 shootings at 2 different royal palaces in Saudi Arabia. And I know, John, that you don't agree with this. And we've also, we know that this photograph of a guy walking through the Tropicana is not Mohammed bin Salman. We know that this has been identified as a guy named Jason Buffman, who apparently works.
Buff.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Jason Buff.
Jason Buff.
Jason Buff, my bad, who works in security or something like that at the Tropicana. I personally cannot get past the remarkable physical resemblance, particularly at a distance, between this individual and the Saudi Crown Prince. I also point to the frequent use of body doubles in the recent murder of journalist. What just happened to my microphone? Hello? That's very interesting. Sound cut out. Can you hear me, John? John, can you hear me? John? John, can you hear me? John? John, can you hear me? John? What just happened? I've lost the sound. Okay, stand by. Stand by, John. Hang on. John? John, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
That's so strange. I just had a little technical failure here. Maybe people heard all the way through there. Anyway, as I was saying, the recent murder in Istanbul of alleged Washington Post journalist and someone who I think is a Mujahideen terrorist supporter, Jamal Khashoggi, we noted that there was a body double who was used as Khashoggi left the Turkish Saudi Arabian embassy, and also former CIA agent John Kiriakou has said that it is a frequent practice to use body doubles in the Arab world. So I think it's an open question. Is a lot of strange things about this guy playing baseball at 10 o'clock at night and being pulled into work and walking through the casino of the Tropicana, flanked by all these SWAT team members. Another thing you're going to address for us tonight, when I finally shut up and let you talk, is the shell casings that Crowdsource community member Joe Napoli personally witnessed right outside the Tropicana. You've found yet another witness who has seen the same thing. But you know, one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that you've presented, John, and the thing that compelled me to contact you again, was this interview with someone by the name of Clarissa. Is that it?
That's correct. Yes, Clarissa.
Do we want to start with that?
Yeah, I think, this is, really compelling. We've got an eyewitness that was at the concert who absolutely insists that the shooters were in the helicopters.
Yeah, she does. Should I play some of that video for everyone to hear?
Sure.
So this is some video that came from the John E Hoover YouTube channel, and let's listen into this.
Or if it was the panic, but I was so unbelievably certain that it was coming from the helicopter because it was so close. And I remember thinking, why is it that close? Oh my God, I think the shooting is coming from the helicopter. And so, I mean, I still kind of believe that because
we lost all audio at your end, Jason.
So certain, just not a doubt in my mind that there was shooting coming from the helicopter.
Yeah, I think when you told me that, I said, no, it's from up here. I can hear it.
Yeah, and she did. She's like, no, boo, it's coming from here. And I'm like, no, it's not. What are you talking about? And I was just so confused and like even more panicked after that. I was like,
all right, sorry about that, John. If you couldn't hear that, I do believe the audience heard it. I heard it. Were you not able to hear that? There's something strange going on with the audio here.
I'm
not
worry.
Sure
no, that's
what
fine.
that would be. But she said she was certain that she heard it
Yes.
coming from a helicopter. And, again, when people are told repeatedly after the fact, no, you didn't hear that, you must be imagining that. I mean, perhaps she's been kind of convinced after the fact that there's no way it could have been. And, people in the news, the cops, various other people whose initials might be JM, constantly insisting that it's not something that could have happened, maybe affect this woman's memory after the fact. What can you tell us about that video and Clarissa?
Well, Clarissa's insistent that they're shooting from the helicopters. What's interesting is that Clarissa's parents also witnessed something that happens much earlier, at 9:47 p.m. And they also witness people dressed in traditional Arabian clothing in the lobby of the hotel earlier in the day taking photographs. So the whole family witnessed really interesting aspects. And I think that's one of the watershed developments that's happened since we last spoke about 6 months ago, was Clarissa finding this interview and getting a chance to hear from somebody that's just, absolutely positive that the shooters were in the helicopters. Right. And then we went back to another find of Shepard Ambellis's, which was Jody Cachego. Jody Cachego was the guy on the roof. And it turns out Jody Cachego also mentioned seeing the helicopters, but of course he thought they were the police, as most people did. Most people thought the helicopters were the cops. But when we get to see the police helicopter footage, and in the police helicopter footage, there's nobody on the roof. So when the police helicopter arrives and is filming the rooftop, Jody Cachego's already gone. Mm-hmm. What Jody Cachego saw was not the police. When the police arrived and filmed the rooftop, there's no sign of Jody Cachego. There's no tripods, no cameras, no gear, nobody putting anything away. So he's another key witness. And then you talk about watershed events and other major developments in the case. We get the body cam footage from the officers that breached the suite. And the big element here is the officer goes to the window, pulls the curtain back, and nothing. Right. He doesn't say, hey guys, here it is, here's the broken window. And supposedly he's walking on 1,057 rounds of brass and stepping on broken glass. And we just don't see it. It's just not in the video. And we only have one body camera from the team that breached the suite. We don't have the body camera footage from any of the other members. And the net of this is the window in 135, it doesn't appear that it was broken.
That's
It
the most
appears that the-
astounding aspect, right?
Right,
Which
right.
video
So-
is it on your channel here that shows that police body camera footage where the window isn't broken? I've got a gun, is that it?
No. You'd have to scroll down quite a bit. Scroll down a little further down. And you want to see inside. Yeah, you can go to any of the, a little further down about the window. And I'll mention 32-135.
Right here,
Yeah,
evidence.
evidence. Yeah.
Right.
So that's one of them. I don't know if the breach footage is in this particular one.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually footage that we got from much later in the evening that looks like the window's being broken after midnight, because we don't have any photographic evidence that the window was broken during the attack. We don't see any muzzle flash coming from 32-135. We do see muzzle flash coming from 32-134. And we have an eyewitness, Lucas Brook, who saw glass falling at 10:05 p.m. So I believe Lucas Brook saw the glass falling from 134.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not believe 135 was broken until after the fact. What you're seeing here, that this occurs after midnight.
Flashes.
Right. So now, did they use another one of these breach strips to blow the window in 135? Did they use a shotgun? There are a lot of shotguns. I don't know. I don't know what this is that we're seeing, but something happened after midnight, and there's no photographic evidence that the window in 135 is broken prior to this.
Yeah,
It
well,
just
in
doesn't
fact,
exist.
there's evidence to the contrary. It's quite astounding. This is another one of the
Correct.
major elements of what's called prima facie evidence, and that is evidence that is so strong that until other stronger evidence is presented, it essentially proves the case, and that case being nobody was shooting out of 32.
The video, which video you may want to go to? Go to the BBC video, the BBC. There's a BBC video that talks about the BBC, the New York Times. You can just search the channel for it, yeah.
We'll do that. And people should really be subscribing. There's another audio thing happening here, John. Hang on. I don't know what's happening. John, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine, Jason.
It's always interesting. I mean, I'm sure these are possibly random technical issues, but my audio has been cutting out. So people should be subscribing to the John E Hoover channel and digging into some of this stuff. There are hours and hours of video there. So which
there
one?
You go.
Good, bad,
That's
and the
it,
ugly?
the first one.
Let's take a look.
So here you're going to see the BBC's footage. So the BBC was reporting at the scene the night of the attack. And when you look at the BBC's footage, it looks pretty clear that the window to 135 is not broken. And so the hypothesis is that when the cops came into the room, when they breached the room, they find Paddock on the floor, they find a lot of guns, they find a lot of ammo, but the window in 135 isn't broken. So what do? The BBC footage appears to be very strong evidence that the window in 135 is not broken.
And you've also got multiple body camera, well, I don't know if I saw that there in this video, but you had multiple body camera clips that showed quite clearly that the window wasn't broken. Okay, so here's the BBC footage. And these are people who were shot. Now again, we aren't saying that this was a false flag, nobody was shot. People were shot, people were killed, people were injured.
No question.
You
No
and
doubt.
I
Yeah,
did a number of episodes where you spoke about the angles of entry of bullet wounds coming down from the top of the head. Yet another element of evidence that supported the notion of overhead helicopters. We've heard from guests like Stephanie and Joe and others who were there, who said that they heard what sounded like shooters all around them. There's countless 911 calls of people reporting shooting well after 10 o'clock at night, all over the place. Joe heard shooting near the Tropicana. There's There's just an overwhelming array of evidence. Now, we also heard when we had Stephanie on the show, she was talking about running out onto the tarmac. Now, this is an interesting piece of evidence that we've got here. So this is from the BBC footage. This is showing, it's a little difficult to see here. Let me open up, we've got a higher res photograph of this that you had sent, but it shows the window and it does not look broken at all. You know, the other thing I wanted to bring up, John, there was a 3D graphics specialist who was doing some videos for a while by the name of something like HDR CFX Cornwall, who put together a photogrammetric reconstruction of the hotel room where he basically placed a 3D model, a highly accurate 3D model of the hotel room over photographs of the actual hotel room so that we could see the buildings outside. And the 3D model, when placed on the 32nd floor, didn't match up with the city outside. It only matched up with the city outside when it was placed on a higher floor inside the Four Seasons Hotel, which is a hotel within the hotel that notably is owned by, what's his name, Al-Walid bin Talal, the owner of Kingdom Holdings and a staunch enemy of both Mohammed bin Salman and President Donald Trump.
Well, he's not as obvious about his hatred for MBS as he is about his hatred for Trump. But certainly Al-Walid bin Talal and Kingdom Holdings owns 45% of the Four Seasons organization, or at least they did. MBS may have negotiated that as part of his release. I don't know. He may be the new owner of the Four Seasons. But certainly this photograph, I believe this one was taken by Jim Loker of the Associated Press.
Right.
And it just doesn't appear that the window in 135 is broken. It does appear that the window in 134 is broken.
In this photo, where do we see that?
Move your cursor a little bit to the left and down. So three floors below those lit up suites. You see the 3 lit up suites?
1, 2,
Go
3.
3 floors.
Okay.
Go 3 floors below.
Right
Stop.
here.
That's
right
it.
here.
That's 32, 134.
I see.
That's
and then
the
what's
window
this?
32,
What's this? Isn't this broken also? No?
That's somebody else's room.
So it's this room and this room that are in question, is that right?
It's the first window you clicked on the left, yes, that's 32, 134. And then it's the first window all the way to the right, and it doesn't appear broken.
Not at all.
Yeah, over to the right more. You see, well, look what the suites look like above.
Well,
That's
none
what
of
you
these
should be
look
seeing.
broken. And the windows,
Right,
I mean,
right.
so when was this taken? Right after the shooting? I mean, certainly the lights are on in the crime scene photos that we see. And if the guy is dead, who would turn the lights off?
Well, certainly wasn't taken before the shooting.
Right, because the cops are here, and here's someone who was conceivably shot at.
So we've yet to see any conclusive evidence of gunfire coming from 32, 135 or any conclusive evidence that the window's broken. Then when we watch the video, when you see the footage from the body cam, the officer that goes to the window has been identified by one of our viewers. So you talk about crowdsourcing the truth.
Right.
The crowdsourcing effort behind this is remarkable. Most of the breaks that we've had is not stuff that I found. It's stuff that viewers and commenters have found.
Right.
So one of the viewers and commenters said the guy who goes to the window, that guy's name is, and nobody knew who it was. And it turns out the officer's name who goes to the window and checks the curtain, his name is Brett Brosnahan. He's a SWAT officer, and his call sign is Zebra 22. Zebra 22 means he is 2 people less tenured than Levi Hancock, who is Zebra 20. Their call signs go by seniority. Okay, so Zebra 20, Levi Hancock, Zebra 22, Brett Brosnahan. Officer Brett Brosnahan goes to the window, checks it, nothing. And supposedly standing on 1,000 rounds of brass. Now, where it gets really creepy and spooky is in the New York Times version and in the Associated Press version, they edit out the 17 seconds where the officer goes to the window.
Well,
I find that very troubling, that both the New York Times and the Associated Press are doing the same exact thing.
well, I don't find that surprising at all. I think that these are the primary elements that are used to deceive the public. You basically take a trusted source like the New York Times, like the Associated Press, you put out some blatant lie, and then countless other newspapers are going to report and say, oh, the New York Times said this and that. I don't want to show this whole video. I'll undoubtedly get some kind of copyright issue brought up, but we're commenting on this video, of course. We'd have to, I apologize that I don't have more of these videos prepared, but we generally like to do these things unscripted, and I didn't know exactly where you're going to go with the conversation, etc. So it's yet another element of evidence that there are just very, very strange things going on in Las Vegas on October 1st. And, we should also mention that Ramsey Dennison's film, What Happens in Vegas, which he started making well before October 1st, 2017, goes into great detail describing how the Las Vegas MPD has falsified evidence and staged crime scenes in multiple occasions. The Counter Lawfare report here on Crowdsource the Truth, Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern with Brian Vukadinovich. Brian has presented documented evidence, court submissions, things that have happened to him in which the police change affidavits, testify to things that aren't true. It seems to be a regular practice, and I'm not saying among all police, but it is clear that there are people, particularly some of the people in the management and higher levels of the Las Vegas MPD, who seem to have no problem falsifying evidence.
Well, this is big. I mean, we're talking about forging evidence, and what we're talking about is potentially that the Las Vegas Metro Police Department broke the window.
Yeah.
And if in fact they did, that's pretty major. That's a pretty big deal. It would mean that they broke the window and they brought about 1,000 rounds of brass into the room and dumped them on the floor.
Talk about that. There was information related to a helicopter leaving and going somewhere. You had flight data.
Well, if you go back to that BBC video that we were looking at, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Yeah, if you go two-thirds of the way into this video, scrub through there. Keep going. Scrub, two-thirds through. You'll get to the footage. That's BBC stuff. There you go. All right, so this is Brett Brosnahan going to the window. And the question is he stepping on 1,000 rounds of brass as he does that? Is he walking on glass? Is he stepping on broken glass and 1,000 rounds of brass shells as he's going to the window? And then why did the New York Times edit this out? Why did the Associated Press edit out SWAT checking this? That's the window, supposedly.
And clearly the lights are on.
The lights are on. He's checking the window, and then there's no reaction.
Now, we see a window there. It doesn't look broken. I saw a reflection on that window.
So he pulls the curtain back.
Here, this guy.
Yeah, now that's Brett Brosnahan. He's not mentioned in the FIT report. No mention of him.
And if you were shooting out that window, don't you think you'd open the curtain?
Well, don't you think if you're the cop who just found the window that was shot out of and had 1,000 rounds of brass, you'd call the guys and say, guys, it's over here. Guys, here's the window.
You'd think that something like that would occur.
Well, and then the question is, why did the Associated Press edit this out? Why did the New York Times edit this out?
Yeah.
This is irrelevant. To me, this is the culmination of the breach. Is these guys go in the room, they go to the window, they pull back the curtain, and there's no hole.
Yeah.
Why did the New York Times edit this out?
Well,
both organizations did the same exact thing. That you don't want to see SWAT checking the window?
Well, I mean, again, this is prima facie evidence that the window is not broken and that nobody was shooting out of this particular hotel room.
So does it appear to you that that officer is standing on 1,057 spent shell casings? That's how many they report in the FIT report that they recovered, 1,057 casings.
Now, John, I'm not a gun owner or someone who's necessarily knowledgeable in firearms or shooting at all, but 1,057, weren't there over 500 people shot that night? Does that mean 1 out of every 3 bullets fired hit a person? And some people were hit multiple times.
No, closer to 1 out of every 2. So we've got 417 gunshot victims.
Multiple shots.
Right, and we have 58 killed. So we have almost 500 people that are hit by gunshots out of 1,057 plus 8 in the other room. That's almost a 50% ratio, which is remarkably high for nighttime. That means if you're firing 10 rounds per second, which is what we hear with that thing that sounds like a belt-fed saw, that's firing at 10 rounds per second. That means in every second of gunfire that you hear, 5 people are being hit, or 1 person's being hit 5 times, right? So 5 people are being hit in every second doesn't seem right.
No.
And it just doesn't appear that Brett Brosnahan is walking on 1,000 shells, and why is he not mentioned in the FIT report at all? It seems like he's playing a pretty key role.
He's not mentioned at all.
No. Then we had another mega break when the Las Vegas Metro Police Department released the helicopter footage.
Right, let's take a look at that.
Showing the hotel, and they don't show the window broken. So this is the Metro N911WY helicopter, arrives on the scene, flies around.
Wait, sorry, is that this one that we've got right here? Right in the far
Let's see. No, this is the new one that we just released in the last day or two, where this is the team that goes out. I don't know that you want to show this. This is a body count team.
Okay,
and they
so
go
let's
out
not do that. I think this is the helicopter footage you're talking about, right?
Probably. Oh, this is McCarran. This is fascinating. Okay. This is actually fascinating. You may want to talk about this.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Yeah,
so this is,
if you want, you can go full screen and scrub into that a little bit if you want.
Take us through it.
Well, if you go ahead and let it play for a second. Go ahead and let it play. So when you and I kind of stopped talking about 6 months ago, one of the challenges that you had thrown down had to do with Maverick. And I had said that Maverick looked like they were doing a flanking maneuver.
Right.
And one of the independent investigators came forward with some air traffic control audio.
Right.
And said, well, in fact, air traffic control is directing them to go to the west. And Hoover thought it was a flank, but it looks like air traffic control told them to do it. And it turns out that that's true. Air traffic control sends these guys out to the west in what turns out to be a flanking maneuver, whether air traffic control knew that or not. Obviously they probably didn't know that. But I ended up spending a lot of time listening to air traffic control, listening to what was happening at the tower, and replaying this flight radar footage.
Right.
And watching what was happening. And discovered some really interesting things. So first of all, the conversation that took place with Maverick didn't really start taking place until 10:19 p.m. The tower was not aware that anything was happening until at 10:15. They become aware of an active shooter at 10:18 after the event is ended, and they then announce that they have an active shooter at the airport
on the runway
and
on the tarmac.
On the property is what he says.
And
we have an active shooter on the property.
Stephanie's firsthand testimony corroborated that. She said that they were running towards the airport or on the tarmac at the airport, and that she heard shooters all around her.
So we've got reports of active shooter on the property at 10:32 p.m. coming from air traffic control. Then we have radio chatter on the Las Vegas Metro Police radio at 11:30 about shooters at the airport. And one of the things we hear that's really interesting on the air traffic control chatter is somebody requests military clearance, some sort of military clearance escort at 10:30 p.m. 10:30 and 35 seconds, we hear something about military clearance.
Now this is astounding. This is night vision footage from the Las Vegas MPD helicopter, right?
Correct. And in this footage, in their first sortie, when they first arrive, we see absolutely zero evidence that the windows in the hotel are broken. Now they're over at the airport, supposedly trying to figure out, are there shooters on the runway? And we end up seeing the camera in about, so here you're going to see some people, and then the camera just spins around like a top, as if nobody's controlling the camera any longer. And then you're just going to see nonsense for minutes and minutes and minutes, just nothing but nonsense.
Let's go through it
Yeah,
here.
and this will make you dizzy. So you can watch this for minutes, and it's like they zoomed in on the tarmac. So this looks like maybe they had cropped this in post-production or something, so that we're not seeing the details.
I don't know
Hard to-
that, because when I'm looking at the noise in the video image, I think it would look differently if it were cropped. It's pretty difficult to control a camera in a helicopter. I've done quite a bit of aerial cinematography, and we don't know anything about what type of camera equipment is on this police helicopter. It's obviously not intended for shooting feature films, so the way it's controlled and the gimbal and everything that's on a helicopter, it's a complicated thing. I would be cautious to jump to any conclusions about what we see here with regard to who's controlling it. So where is the footage of Merritt here? I'm scrubbing
Well, that's
through.
the question. Right, that's the question. There is none.
Isn't there, I saw something in here where there were like people walking in formation who looked differently.
There you go. You just missed it.
That?
That's it. That's people.
Now, so this is how much after the shooting started? Like, what are these guys doing here?
Well, this is 15 minutes later, 16 minutes later, 10:31. The shooting ends at 10:15.
People running away, isn't it?
Could be. Could be.
I thought I saw something that looked like guys like marching on the runway.
You'll have to find that, cue that up.
Yeah.
But the other big development that we found when we started looking at the air traffic control, listening to air traffic control, revisiting the flight radar.
Wait a minute.
Was
sorry. This is it. This is
there
it.
you go.
See,
That's it.
Stephanie had described to us people running for their lives. Why are these people walking so calmly on the runway if there's a shooting going on? They seem to be very in control of this situation, that they're just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people walking kind of in formation. I would think, we should ask some more of our, and there's some digital artifacts that we see as well, but those people seem to be walking very calmly in a very organized way for people who would be running for their lives from a shooting in the way that Stephanie described. And as a matter of fact, when did the shooting start, John?
Well, according to the latest footage, it starts at 10:04. Everybody thought it was 10:05,
And
but
people
we
were
picked
running
up a
for their
shot
lives
fired.
immediately, right? It was
Sure.
chaos immediately. Who was walking leisurely at 10:30?
Exactly. And runways 19L and 19R, they're closed. At 10:30 p.m., they close these runways, and then they shut the lights off. The lights on runways 19R and 19L are both shut off. And what we found at 10 p.m. was a private jet that landed at McCarran right at 10 o'clock and taxis right next to Maverick. And from the time it arrives at the end of the taxi to when Maverick departs is only 6 minutes.
Is there footage of that plane arriving?
There is, I think, in the video that we did saying what happened on runway 19R Part 1. And we've got flight radar recordings of that. So you've got this private jet arriving at 10 o'clock, taxis right next to Maverick. 6 minutes later, Maverick takes off with 7 helicopters. So now, was Maverick exfiltrating a VIP from the Four Seasons, or was Maverick exfiltrating a VIP that was on this private jet? And so we've refined our hypothesis as a result of new evidence, right? So we see new evidence. We see a private jet touching down at 10 p.m., taxis next to Maverick, and 6 minutes later, Maverick spins up 7 helicopters, right? So was Maverick exfiltrating the passenger that was on that private jet?
And do we know who owns that private jet?
Well, so that's part 2. So part 2 of what happened on runway 19R. The part 2 of that is, where did the jet come from?
Right.
Where did it take off from, and who owns that jet? And yes, we tracked down who owns that jet, and that's what happened on runway 19R. Part 2 is the name of the video, or what went down on runway 19R.
Right.
You can just search, part 2. So in this video, we track down the jet. We find out who owns it. There's another video that we did, who was Maverick's passenger. So that, there's just a tremendous amount of information in each one of these videos on another 20 minutes or so, 12 minutes or so. But there's hours and hours and hours of content based on which aspect of this attack we're talking about.
Right.
What happened at the airport appears to be much bigger and much more significant than anyone realized. A couple guys mentioned it early on, but I don't think anybody really paid attention. Everybody just swept it under the rug and just said, there was probably just a mistake. But when you start listening to the air traffic control, shutting it down, saying we're not going anywhere, we've got an active shooter on the property, they shut down the runways, they turn off the lights, you hear requests for military clearance.
And that looked like people walking in multiple directions. Who was walking towards the concert venue at 10:30 when there's a shooting going on? I mean, you would think everyone would be running away.
Exactly. So the other big aspect that we sort of have put forth a theory on is that nobody was shooting at the tanks. So the standard narrative is he was shooting at the tanks, and according to the police report, they missed the tanks 6 times.
Right.
That's almost impossible, to miss the tank 6 times.
Right.
All right, so the tanks are 770 yards from the window 32-134. The NRA target for shooting at 700 yards is 24 inches square. The tank is 48 feet tall, 78 feet wide.
How could he miss it?
And the NRA target is 24 inches square.
And the other thing that you point
yards.
out in another one of your videos is that the police on their own recordings are remarking how bizarre it is, the number of headshots, like they're targeted, they're so accurate.
That's the most recent video. The most recent video is the body count team goes into the venue to do a count on how many people are killed inside the venue. And they start commenting how person after person is shot in the head, and then they're commenting that more than one is shot dead center in the forehead. And it's obviously causing these guys some upset and concern because they're talking about it.
Yeah, and there was this whole thing where What Big Eyes You Have, Martha had identified that there's the thing in Vegas is Maverick helicopters, and then there was something else in like Alabama, I think, that was Maverick Aviation, where the guy that's the owner of Maverick helicopters lived in the house where that was registered, and Jeff Sessions, did you get into any of that? Jeff Sessions had some ownership in there was some kind of connection there, it seemed. No,
I didn't explore that. I didn't.
You might recall that I went to Maverick Helicopters. That was someplace that I was going to investigate because Martha had brought that up to me early. And I went there. I had met up with Jake in Vegas, and I'd been following Jake for a long time, so I was interested in working with him there. And we went to Maverick together, and then he published a video. I remember at the time feeling like he was quick to get it out before I could do anything, and he obviously wasn't interested in coordinating with me in any way. That's not necessarily sinister at all. It's just, competing journalists trying to get his story out first. But he put that out, and then I put something out about Maverick. The guy we spoke to at Maverick got very upset, and they put a strike on the video and made me take it down. But, I mean, again, we're asking questions about their business that maybe they don't like. It brings me back also to Battlefield Vegas. None of these companies had very organized answers for these valid questions. What were you doing with the Las Vegas Metro PD? What are you doing with the helicopters taking off?
Certainly. Well, more evidence has come up that sort of vindicates the work that you did with Joe Napoli. When you and Joe were walking behind the Tropicana, and you filmed Joe showing you where he saw the shells, and
Right.
then you walked into the back entrance of the Tropicana where they had set up the triage unit.
Yeah.
We did a video recently that shows the cops find a dropped magazine, a magazine from a gun that has rounds in it, find it on the street, and then on the other side of the street they find live rounds. So Joe Napoli saw empty shell casings. The cops find live rounds on the street. They find a dropped magazine on the other side of the street. And they're not far from where you and Joe were.
Right.
Then another commenter, another guy who started making videos, but, again, doesn't have 1,000 subscribers, did a video where he found another eyewitness who also saw those shell casings where Joe saw them, where you and Joe were walking. So there's multiple eyewitnesses accounting for these shell casings behind the Tropicana.
Wow.
We see the police identifying a magazine with rounds in it. We see the police identifying live rounds. And then we see the police finding a round in the bathroom at the Paris Hotel at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
After the Paris, so the Paris Hotel had been we heard it on the radio, gunfire at the Paris, shooting at the Paris. The cops find a bullet in the bathroom at the Paris Hotel, 3 o'clock in the morning. Another big development. And then another one, that it's amazing that the major media, the networks, don't talk about this. Laura Loomer broke this aspect of the case months ago, which is that there were 3 women registered to the room with Paddock.
Yeah.
Right? So there's 3 women who are registered to the room, and we now know their names, right? We know that we know the names that they gave the front desk. And in order to check into a hotel these days, I think you have to provide a passport or photo identification.
I think just the person picking up the keys would have to do that.
No. In order to have your name in a hotel on the register, you have to provide photo ID. You absolutely have to. Their names were Katie, Joanne, and Laura. 3 women registered to the room with Paddock. Nobody picks up on this. Nobody picks up on the fact that the window's not broken. The fact that the window's not broken and the New York Times edits that out of their footage, that the Associated Press edits that out. The fact that, it's really disturbing.
You probably remember that a lot of people attacked Joe Napoli on social media for coming out and speaking about what was going on in Las Vegas and revealing evidence, and it made it difficult for Joe to continue to appear. Joe's got a business that people are probably searching for him on the internet, and he's not like me. Joe's not making YouTubing and being a news personality online his business. It's interesting to see who was attacking Joe Napoli and who is coming into this narrative to try to discredit the work that we're trying to do and say that you're not living where you live and say that you're disinfo, etc.
No, Joe Napoli's sighting has been corroborated by another witness. It's that simple.
Yeah. So, I mean, that certainly adds weight to what Joe was talking about. Exactly.
And then on the police radio, just recently, we heard automatic gunfire at midnight. So you're watching police body cam footage.
Right.
Yeah, official police body cam footage. Exactly. Is it the cops? Are the cops shooting somebody? If so, who are they shooting at? And if it's not the cops shooting, what is this that we're hearing at midnight? And it's on an official LVMPD body cam. We put out a video just recently. What's going on at midnight?
Let's take a look at that. So this is, I think a lot of people didn't even realize that the body camera footage had been released. This is one rare case where the police actually automatic gunfire at midnight. Is that it?
That's it.
This is one of the rare instances where the police actually had their body cameras on, and we get to see it. We've heard quite a lot about body camera footage not being available. For instance, in the case of the alleged Seth Rich murder, no body camera footage there. But there's a lot of Las Vegas MPD body camera footage. People should go to the John E Hoover YouTube channel and subscribe so that they can listen to this video and study these videos in their entirety, John's gone through and done some waveform analysis and a lot of really incredibly detailed work. And I got to hand it to you, John. I mean, you've done incredible work. As I said, you know, the thing that brought me back to contact you was just simply watching the videos and being amazed at the things that you've uncovered. I wanted to have you on the show here because you've only got just over 10,000 subscribers on the John E Hoover channel, and I wanted our 73,000 plus Crowdsource the Truth YouTube viewers to see the work that you're doing and to dig in there and try and see if we can continue, as you said, to push this crowdsource investigation forward, because certainly the FBI and the Las Vegas Metro PD are not doing that.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure.
I mean, is it still an open investigation, or what's the status? What's the official status?
No, the case was closed. Well,
Closed.
The case was closed by the FBI, by the Las Vegas Metro Police Department.
Unbelievable.
The FBI's, case closed. They do not have a motive, but the case is closed.
So I'm looking at the
FBI
comments.
has not issued their report. The
Right.
FBI has not yet issued their report.
Wow. I'm looking at the comments here, and people are saying Laura dropped Vegas. Don't know why. I don't necessarily think that no longer investigating Las Vegas is, it's not necessarily motivated by anything sinister. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's difficult to get this information. And Laura's moved on to other things. She was chasing Keith Ellison. She's been kicked off of Twitter.
I'd be curious what Laura thinks about the helicopters. Does she see them? Does she think that there's helicopters involved in the attack? She's never really addressed it. She seems to think it's ISIS. And I understand why she thinks that. There are elements of this that are, Islamic terrorism, but it's not ISIS. ISIS
Right.
can't fly. ISIS doesn't have access to helicopters.
Well,
If
but
she
we
doesn't
do know.
if she doesn't see the helicopters, then I understand why she thinks that. But
Right.
once you acknowledge the helicopters and the aerial aspect of the attack, you move on to, well, who's got helicopters? Who has access to helicopters? And
Right.
ISIS is not the answer.
Well, in Laura's defense, I know she's been busy with other things. She staged a protest here in New York City the other day where she handcuffed herself to the headquarters of Twitter. Notably, we should mention that Twitter has a $1.5 billion investment from no other than Al-Walid bin Talal. And Laura put one of the sort of Nazi Jewish stars on her shirt as a matter of demonstration that she, as a conservative Jewish journalist writing things that oppose Sharia law, got kicked off. But there are people like Louis Farrakhan who say that Jews are termites that are allowed to stay. So, I mean, I was in contact with Laura earlier today, and she told me specifically that she's been incredibly busy and had 812 unread text messages. So, I think that Laura's still interested in Vegas. She and I went and spoke to, what's his name, Fudenberg, the coroner there in Vegas. And I can tell you on a personal level, I didn't get a warm and fuzzy feeling from that guy. I got the impression that he was lying to us. That's certainly not, the same as photographic evidence, but I didn't feel very, very good. And people are talking about when I tried to interview that crazy Troy dude outside of Campos's house. That was really weird. Let's look at some of the comments here, John, and see what people are saying. They agree with you that photo ID is needed. This is someone who works at a casino in Vegas, that you can't have your name registered to a room without giving photo ID. So why hasn't the hotel told us the name of who that was?
Good question.
5
We
by
know their
5.
first
Sounds like Mike Turber thinks I'm a master of talking a lot about nothing. So why are you here, Mike? Go away. Mike Turber is a master of taking my videos and repurposing them on his site to get views. Well, John, what else do you want to discuss? I think you and I are going to need to start doing some more of these videos. And again, I apologize I didn't have more things queued up. It's been a very busy day. I had an impromptu interview with Bill Binney earlier today, and Bill was giving us really extensive details about how the FBI utilizes provocateurs and sets people up you know, that actually plays into this. What if Stephen Paddock, working with the FBI or something, was placed in that room for a purpose? And I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but
I think he was, but not. I don't think the FBI is behind it. I think
Why
you've got
not?
an organization much like the FBI, very similar in what they're capable of doing, the way they operate, but they're not domestically based. And we did a video called Laura Loomer, the Honey Pot, and the three women that were sleeping with Paddock. And basically,
wait
it
a minute.
talks about how.
To be clear, you're not saying that Laura Loomer is involved or that Laura Loomer is a
No. No, the video is called Laura Loomer, the Honey Pot, and the three women sleeping with. There you go, Laura Loomer, the Honey Pot, and the three women sleeping with Paddock. So that video talks about how Laura broke the aspect of the case, right? Laura breaks this piece that there's three women registered to the room, right? She got the break, and she got it months ago, but nobody follows up on it. Then we find out the names of the women through the body cam, right? When she did the break, we didn't have the body cam footage. We get the names of the women from the body cam footage, and we find out their names are Katie, Joanne, and Laura that are registered to the room with Paddock. So we've got their first names, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is this not a thing? How is this not being picked up by the major media? How do you not investigate the fact that there's three women registered to the room? How do you not investigate the fact that, you know, so here's Alex having Laura on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Laura makes the break and nothing, crickets.
Right.
So she gets credit for the break, and then, you know, the crowdsourcing community digs in, finds the names. The names were published again on another YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't figure this out. We just kind of put it all together.
So we still don't really know who these three women are.
No, we have their first names. We do not have them photographically. No, we do not know what they look like. Nothing.
I mean, if they're in the room the guy is allegedly shooting from, shouldn't they be arraigned as accessories to mass murder and be on trial?
Certainly they should be interviewed. And, you know, so now think about the two food carts you saw. You see one food cart outside,
right,
set for two people. You see another food cart inside, set for two people. Well, it sounds like four people.
Right. Yeah. Laura did a lot on this Las Vegas investigation.
Right, so what you were just saying about Binny, oh, absolutely. There's no question she did. And she shook it up at the beginning. She shook the tree very hard.
Right.
Binny was talking about how the FBI sets people up.
Right.
Well, guess what? It's not just the FBI that does that. The Mossad does that, right?
Everybody does that.
Right. They all do it. MI6 does it.
Right.
They all do this stuff. So now could an organization like the FBI, like MI6, like the Mossad, honeypot somebody like a Stephen Paddock? And that's the gist of the video that we were just looking at. The three women, the Katie, Joanne, Laura, were they honeypotting him? Did they convince him he was doing a gun deal and selling rifles to really rich Arabian kids that are willing to pay $20,000 a gun? And that's what he thought he was doing. He thought he was hosting a gun party instead of a Tupperware party. He thought he was going to make $500,000 selling guns for $20,000 a piece. And that's what he was told. That's all he knew. He thought he was doing a gun deal and selling guns and making $500,000.
Gen 2020 is talking about a pink makeup case in the crime scene photos.
Well, and so early back in April, we broke, so to speak, the notion that there was a woman in the room with Paddock. There was female clothing. And we did a video in April of this year, and I made the claim that there was a woman in the room with Paddock. And at the time, it was outrageous. Everybody was like, huh? What? How can you say that? And it was because there was women's clothing, and there was this Angle shopping bag next to the vehicle outside. Angle only sells women's clothes.
Yeah, why? People are saying if they're hookers, how would they be registered in the hotel?
Right. Obviously, they've never had a hooker. You don't register a hooker to your hotel room.
Well, that's what they're saying, that people would not register a hooker in the hotel room.
Right,
So,
hooker, yeah, you don't put a hooker on your hotel room.
well, all right. So, see, I mean, again, it all comes back to me to the Saudi the Saudi Air National Guard. the fact that Al-Walid bin Talal has major ownership in a room in the hotel that lines up with a 3D model made by HDR CFX Cornwall, if that's the guy's name. HDR
That's right.
CFX
Yeah,
Cornwall.
that's right.
So there's a lot of suggestion that there was shooting and things happening right above, or obviously Al-Walid bin Talal has got a lot of influence there in Las Vegas. And there's been so much activity in Saudi Arabia surrounding, Mohammed bin Salman, and now with the recent murder of Jamal Khashoggi, I think a lot of people have seen this photograph of Jamal Khashoggi hanging out with Al-Walid bin Talal. They're obviously allies. I would think Khashoggi's working for bin Talal, right? They had this news network or something that they were starting.
Correct.
And so why was he killed? Is there maybe something that Mohammed bin Salman knows about a collaboration between Al-Walid and Khashoggi that we, the general public, don't know?
Well, we did a video about Khashoggi, and the name of the video was "Is MBS the most misunderstood man on earth?" The Saudi family doesn't want people to think there's discord in Saudi Arabia. And so they, how many cases of attempted assassinations of MBS have you heard about in the news?
Many.
Well, in the news, in the mainstream media, on
I
on
heard
CBS?
about an attack. Oh, no, not in the mainstream news. But when Jake said that he had multiple news articles that gave him backup to this intelligence that was given out to him over the phone by the Saudi Arabian embassy, I went looking for those articles. To this date, no one has been able to present a news article that gives us the whereabouts of Mohammed bin Salman on October 1st. As a matter of fact, Jake presented an article from a Russian newspaper that was released on October 2nd, and he did something that we've seen other fake journalists on the internet do, where they present a portion of the evidence and then lie about it. He showed the photo of MBS and the King Faisal, on the cover of this Russian newspaper, and he showed the date that it was October 2nd. But when you found the international version of that same exact article translated into English, it said that the king and the crown prince will visit Moscow in the coming weeks. Didn't say where they were on October 1st. To date, no one, particularly not Jake Morphonios, no one has presented this alleged evidence of news articles telling us where MBS was. And I'm not saying that means that he was in Las Vegas, but it's certainly curious.
Well, the thing with Khashoggi, we have an interview of Khashoggi where he's talking about an Arab Spring in Saudi Arabia. And effectively, that's an overthrow of the sitting government.
Right.
And if you're the crown prince,
you
overthrowing the government, that's not on your agenda. So, again, is it rabble-rousing? Is it a coup d'etat? Is it a soft coup d'etat?
What's the name of the company that owned the jet that landed? Do we know?
That owned which jet? I'm sorry?
The jet that landed on, at runway 19.
Oh, the Citation C-550.
Who owned that?
The company's based in Orlando, and has 2 employees.
Do you know the name of it?
When we look up I forget off the top of my head, but when we look up the address, it's in the video. When we look up the address, it's in one of those 3 videos, maybe in the Who Was Maverick's Passenger video, I forget. But it turns out it's a house on a golf course in Orlando.
Really? That owns the jet?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. 2 employees, $120,000 a year in revenue. And the company was founded in 2017.
What do you think's the name of the video?
Just type in Maverick. You'll find it. Maverick.
So people can do a lot of research. What are they hiding?
Second video. Who is Maverick's passenger?
People can do a lot of research into the Las Vegas shooting just by subscribing to the John E Hoover channel. Wait a minute. Oh, apparently I might have misread some comment here from 5x5 News.
Okay.
There's a lot of comments coming in. It's hard for me to keep up. Prince Salman's uncle flew immediately from the UK to claim his position of the crown. A lot of strange comments in here too.
I'm sure.
You know, anytime we do this, we get a lot. You know, you start getting explosive information like this. So he says, ask John or Jake or anyone if they have so much evidence, why are they not working with the attorneys? 5x5 wants to know.
The attorneys are free to contact me by email. Happy to work with any of them.
Right.
But I'm not going to, you know, cold call attorneys.
Yeah, I
Attorneys
understand that.
attorneys know how to reach me. My email's public. I am John Cullen at protonmail.com. Send me an email if you're an attorney and you'd like me as an expert witness. Happy to help.
There you go. And has anyone contacted you that you'd like to mention that maybe, I mean, we don't want you to reveal anything that would come, maybe we don't need to talk about, I don't know. You know, we're getting past an hour here. Is there anything else you want to talk about right now, John? Or, you know, we could certainly do another show.
Yeah, this is a good overview of sort of the big developments that have happened in the last 6 months or so. You know, again, 3 women registered to the room. The window's not broken.
It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, these are big elements. You've got an eyewitness
of the helicopter flying.
Yeah, absolutely, positively, definitively, without a shadow of a doubt, they were shooting at us from the helicopters. So, for people who weren't there, I don't know that we have another witness that's as definitive.
Yeah.
Saying I absolutely, positively, without a matter of a doubt, saw shots coming from that suite, that right there. We don't have it. We don't have any footage of it.
And
so
didn't she at another
evidence,
time also say she saw like 4 guys sitting on the skids?
Yes, absolutely. Her name is Clarissa, and you can search our videos for Clarissa, and you'll find witness testimony.
Amazing. John, you're doing incredible work. I think you have positioned yourself, I mean, you've moved into the pole position as far as Las Vegas research is concerned. I find it very telling that you were not dissuaded after our last encounter. That, I mean, obviously everybody knows that blew up on me. It resulted in a bunch of negative videos. It causes me to wonder if the person who caused that blow up maybe didn't have the intention of creating all this discord, because you and I didn't really speak too much after that. I think you came on one more time, but I was filled with confusion and doubt about you, and let's face it, we just didn't speak for months.
Well, there's a lot of pretenders. There's a lot of people who have ideas. We've been collecting evidence and evaluating evidence. And when you look at the evidence is what drives our hypotheses. When we get new evidence, we refine the hypothesis. And in some cases, it changes rather dramatically. The one thing that hasn't changed is that it's an aerial attack. Right? We see three helicopters, and that hasn't changed.
Mr. Hospitality doesn't like the fact that I have a lack of things to talk to you about. Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is I've watched a few of these videos and I invited you here to talk to us about it. I don't know what Mr. Hospitality wants me to talk about. Mother of 3.
Well, Mr. Hospitality, we talked about 3 women in the room with Paddock, Katie, Joanne, and Laura. We talked about automatic gunfire at midnight.
The helicopter was the biggest thing.
We talked about the bullet. We talked about the bullet found in the bathroom at the Paris Hotel. We talked about drop magazines and live rounds found by the cops. We talked about the C-550 that landed at 10 o'clock. We looked at the BBC footage. We talked about the officer going to the window, and you said we don't have anything to talk about?
I don't know. Hospitality has that problem.
Maybe he wasn't paying attention.
Again, in my view, the thing that prompted me to call you was Clarissa saying she was certain somebody was shooting from the helicopter, and I heard the part when I first listened to your video where she said she saw 4 guys hanging off the skids of the helicopters, and it just brought me right back to that very first Saudi Air National Guard video that you had shown me, where it's like a training video of how they do it with those helicopters, and it showed guys hanging off of the helicopters. So it seemed like really strong corroborating evidence of helicopters, and that was the thing that blew up our whole relationship. So that's the primary thing that I wanted to talk about. I apologize that I wasn't more prepared for our video today, but as most people saw, I was, busy talking to Bill Binney, putting that together and then getting that together. But to me, Clarissa, an eyewitness verifying the helicopter. And again, you had other videos that showed dots hovering that couldn't possibly be jets. You had flight radar 24 data. You've got the angle of trajectory of the bullet wounds in the autopsy reports. So it's, we're putting together, we're feeling around in the dark for pieces. And when you get major corroborating evidence from an eyewitness, that's a big deal. That was my main purpose here. Mother of three is very interested to know who the owner of the jet was. Could we find that quickly while we're still on?
It's in the video. It's in the video. I would just encourage her to, take a look at the videos that talk about the airport Maverick, who was Maverick's passenger, and then runway 1 and 2.
Right. So the channel, of course, is John E Hoover. He's got 10,648 subscribers. I hope he's got more now after this video, because the whole purpose here is to get as many people looking at this information as possible. I mean, bear in mind, I'm not intended to have all the answers. I'm a hub where I bring together people like John Hoover and everybody who's watching right now, so that hopefully Mother of Three and some of the others can go in here and find some more information. Mike Turber at 5x5 News is saying there is video of shots coming from the room. He has it on his.
Okay, great. We'll have to watch that.
So how is that happening if the window's not broken?
Yeah, well, I think there's some video he's referring to of some smoke that some people feel is conclusive. I don't feel it's conclusive, so I kind of skip it because I just don't think it's conclusive video. But if Mike thinks that's conclusive, that's great. Next time we get together, we should talk about the zip line that the police saw and started commenting about, because that's also kind of fascinating. You got a bunch of cops talking about a zip line between, coming from the building.
Amazing. Yeah, John, we'll definitely, now that you and I are back in communication, we can get into this a bit more. And my promise to Mr. Hospitality and John Hoover is that I will be more prepared for our next show, and you and I can go through some videos and have stuff prepared with specific questions. But for now, I want to thank everybody for watching. John, do you have any Patreon or any kind of PayPal or anything that you want to tell people about?
No, in fact, we're not monetized at all. The channel's not monetized. There's no PayPal. There's no Patreon. We don't get any revenue from any of the videos. There's none of that. It's all just us trying to get to the truth.
All right.
That's it.
And Mike Turber is certainly welcome to send me a link to whatever he's got there that he wants us to talk about. I'm open to it. And Jake Morphonios is welcome to come back and send us this evidence of where Prince Mohammed bin Salman was, that he has avoided adamantly and just instead insisted on accusing me of being Mossad and putting out videos alleging that I'm somehow in league with some crazy person who he chases with a bat and then interviews the next day. But I do want to remind people that Crowdsource the Truth is viewer sponsored. So if you like these shows and you want them to continue, please go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Tomorrow, of course, at 3 p.m., I will be back with Charles Ortel for Sunday with Charles. There are a lot of things going on with the Clinton Foundation, and people will accuse me of something if I don't mention that George H.W. Bush is dead. I was deeply saddened to learn of his death because I wanted that scumbag to face trial and go to jail. But anyway, John, thanks for joining me tonight. I'll speak to you very soon. Thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll be in touch, John. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Thank you.
Great work, John. Really great work.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.